My story begins with the fact that I come home from work, not early, not late, just at my usual time. It's the middle of winter, so I used the remote control to open the garage door when I pulled into the driveway. My wife's car is there, in its usual place, no stranger's car in the garage or in the driveway. I parked on my usual side of the garage. There is a lot of ordinary going on here. I entered the house from the garage. No premonitions, no worries, just the usual return home after work. When I entered the kitchen, I shouted, "Janie, I'm home." There is no answer. The beginning of anxiety, not much anxiety yet, just anxiety like, I wonder where she is. I went through the kitchen and into the hallway. Janie was gone. There were no sounds at all. I began to climb the stairs to the bedroom level, still without noise, my anxiety becoming more and more serious. Almost at the top of the stairs, the anxiety increased. There was a premonition. Something bad was happening. I actually pulled out my service weapon for the first time in many years. Our bedroom door was closed. I took a breath and partially exhaled to cope with stress. I turned the doorknob and pushed the door open with my gun, and he stopped. I immediately thought of a crime. But when I stood there and analyzed what I saw, I realized that it was probably worse than a crime. My wife was lying in our bed with that terrible stillness that is characteristic of a dead body. I could try to run up to her, hug her and shake her and maybe discover that she's not really dead, that she's just sleeping or maybe unconscious. But next to her, with the same immobility, lay a man. I didn't go to the bed. I went to the windows and opened both of them as wide as possible, even in the middle of winter weather. Then I turned off the propane heater, which my wife probably turned on to keep them warm while they were doing what they were doing. I actually touched my wife's carotid artery just to make sure there was no pulse. I didn't touch the man. I didn't go to the other side of the bed. I was shocked. It seemed to me that I was moving in water or molasses, slowly and difficult. My thoughts are a mess of desperation and trying to think the way a policeman should think when he discovers two dead bodies. I stood there with my arms at my sides, trying unsuccessfully to look at my wife and not see the asshole next to her. When my brain started working a little better, I realized that at some point I had holstered my weapon. This realization activated my brain. I left the bedroom and went down the stairs. I couldn't call my partner. He had just returned from work, and there was nothing he could do to help with this mess. I mean, why ruin his evening? I decided to call my boss, Captain Caparelli. Caparelli, Detective Department. Dave, I said, and I thought, as I have a million times, that David was a strange name for an Italian child. Maybe his mom had a relative named David, but, hi, who is this? Dave, this is Jack, Jack Thomas and I couldn't go on. Jack, what happened? You just finished your shift. Did you get home okay? Yeah, Dave, listen, I need you to come to my house, with a team, an ambulance, I think, to the crime scene. But, no sirens, just quiet, I knew my voice didn't sound very coherent. No, Jack, I don't understand. Now take a deep breath, exhale a little, and tell me what's going on. I almost laughed when I heard him remind me of a stress reliever that we all had to practice when we needed it. Dave, yeah, well listen, I had an accident at home. It's just come to my house with the team, okay? Jack, I'm on my way. I think the sound of my voice convinced him that something serious was going on. I was just sitting there in the living room, waiting for the circus that was about to descend on me in that bedroom upstairs. I couldn't go back upstairs, but I managed to open the front door. Captain Caparelli came in a few minutes later, followed by two uniformed officers, two paramedics, and a guy I knew was our local crime scene investigator. Dave raised his hand, and they all stopped. Then he came over and sat down next to me. Jack, before we go any further, how about you hand me your service weapon? I looked at him in surprise, but then realized that I shouldn't be surprised. Judging by my rambling phone call, he was probably wondering what I could do. Sure, Dave, here it is, I said, handing it over. You see, it wasn't fired. Actually, I've never fired it in the line of duty. Okay, thanks. Now, could you tell us? Or maybe show us what's going on? I got up, about 100 years older than I was an hour ago, and led him upstairs. Again, he motioned for the others to wait. We reached the end of the stairs, and I motioned him into what used to be Janie's and my bedroom. I would never sleep there again, and neither would she, so of course it wasn't our bedroom anymore. I recovered a little from the initial shock and followed him into the bedroom. Dave, this is Janie. Maybe you'll recognize her from the parties in the department. I do not know who this asshole is. I came home from work, went upstairs and found them in such a state. The heater was working. I turned it off and immediately opened both windows. That's why it's so cold here. I didn't touch any of them, just felt Janie's carotid artery to see if there was a pulse. He wasn't there. Then I went downstairs and called you. I think I was in some shock when I called, and I apologize for that. I think I'm still a little bit in shock, but I'm coping. I know you need to process this scene. I'd like to wait downstairs. I really don't want to stay up here. Jesus, Jack, damn it. Yes, go downstairs. Wait, I'll go with you and assemble a team to deal with this. He gathered them all and they got to work. Sometime later, an ambulance arrived with 2 folding gurneys with wrapped forms on them. Someone took out the heater, I think, to check, and Dave sat down next to me again. Jack, I know this is a terrible time for you, but I have to ask, do you know this man? I mean the man upstairs. I tried not to look at him, not very professionally on my part, but no, I don't think I've ever seen him. I'm going to show his driver's license, just the part with the photo, and ask again, have you ever seen him? Do you know him? I actually looked at the photo, actually studied it, not to see if I knew this asshole, but to try to see what Janie saw in him. But I just couldn't see anything. No, Dave, I've never seen him. I don't know who he is, and maybe worse, I don't see any magic, no attraction, nothing that would draw Janie to him, whatever. And I started crying in front of Dave and the guys from the crime scene. I tried to stop. I knew that they would tell this whole dirty story all over the department. I knew that people would feel sorry for me, but at the same time whisper about how I couldn't satisfy my wife, how I was a cuckold. At some point, my partner Mike Blankenship and his wife Molly showed up. Dave disappeared, and Mike and Molly sat with me, gave me something to drink, and finally took me to the kitchen to try to feed me. No one talked much, they just sat with me. Molly held my hand. They both said that everything would be fine. In the end, they kind of picked me up and walked me to their car. We went to their house, Molly gave me sleeping pills, and they put me to bed in their guest room. I had never taken sleeping pills before, and I think the pills caused me to have strange dreams that night, dreams about Janie and me, Janie an asshole, Janie and some other man. Eventually, the effect of the pills ended, and I woke up early, still on a dark winter morning. I was lying there thinking about my now-deceased marriage, wondering why Janie had been cheating for how long, with one asshole or with others, with many others. Bad thoughts that come to mind in the dark in an unfamiliar house. Did she love this guy? Was she going to leave me? We were married for 10 years, had no children. Either of us was a child lover, and 4 months ago, we went on a Caribbean cruise to celebrate our 10th anniversary. I thought we had a lot of fun, and I know we had a lot of lovemaking. Jackie, you killed me. I will never be able to get out of this bed. Funny choice of words in retrospect. And now, in the Blankenship guest room, I cried again, remembering that time on the ship. When Janie came to her senses a little, I took a brush and began to comb her hair, which I rarely did. Eventually, I heard a noise in the house, got up, took a quick shower in the bathroom, put on the same clothes as the day before, and wandered into the kitchen. Molly was already there, making breakfast, and the coffee was ready. She didn't say anything, just hugged me, and that was the right thing to do. The feeling of a warm female body, her arms around me, the smell of her hair gave me more comfort that morning than any words could have given. We stood like that for a minute or so, and then she gently pushed me away. Have some coffee, Jack, and have breakfast. I think you need both this morning. Thanks, Molly, you're right. I guess I haven't eaten anything since lunch yesterday. Oh, Molly? She turned away from the stove to look at me. Thank you for the hug. It means a lot to me. Well, Jack, you mean a lot to me. And for me, partner, Mike said, entering the kitchen. I know you just got the worst hand life can give you, but I also know that you're a tough nut to crack and you're going to survive this shitty show. Molly and Mike didn't go to work. After breakfast, they took me to a nearby park. Mike tricked me into kicking a soccer ball with him. Then Molly tried to get me to play tennis, and then they gave up trying to distract me. We sat down at the picnic table, and I just looked at Mike. Okay, partner, he said. Obviously, entertainment and games don't work. So how about I tell you the news about yesterday? Would that be better? Mike, you know that's true. I need information, not a distraction. Good. I called the office early this morning and will give you what I was told. The guy's name is, James Johnson. He was an executive director at a lumber export company, and his wife is a housewife who takes care of their two children, aged 10 and 8. She got hysterical last night when Robert O'Toole, you know Robert, right? I nodded. Robert O'Toole was our best cop at death notification work. Well, he and the pastor went to their house to tell her the news, just a notification and news about the cause of death, and she had a tantrum. I think she finally came to her senses a little bit. Her parents came, and O'Toole and the pastor left. Then everything must have become really interesting. The TV news had already broadcast a story about a faulty propane tank and two people, not married to each other, dying of carbon monoxide poisoning. Mrs. Johnson must have seen it, because she went a little crazy. She started leaving her husband, well, her late husband at that moment. Anyway, she started throwing his stuff out on the front lawn, and that's about when his parents showed up, I think, unaware of the plot on TV. She attacks them, I think, for what a nasty son they raised. One of them calls 911, and a patrol car pulls up. Then the hostess really goes crazy. She grabs a knife from somewhere and tries to stab one of the responding policemen, who turns out to be a woman. The police officers who arrived must not have known about the earlier event, because one of the two patrolmen stunned her. This leads to her parents getting into a fight, and more cops are called. And of course, the TV van appears. Eventually, enough bosses arrive to calm everyone down. No one went to jail, and I understand that everyone has apologized. My God, this is a shitty show. I had no idea what kind of bad show you were talking about. Yes. The captain asked me to keep you out of the office for a few days until he calls and says you can come back. You and I are both on full pay right now, so that's good. He said it might be useful for you to go away, maybe for a week, for example, to some warm place, maybe on a cruise. Yes, right now I feel like I'm on a cruise. Well, I think he thinks it might help you stay away from this show, give you some time to recover from what your wife did, you know? Mike and Molly, you guys are great friends, and I know you and Caperly are fine, but I need to stay here. I can't figure out what happened if I'm somewhere far away on a cruise ship. Besides, I couldn't tell them about my last cruise with Janie and how I cried about it last night. I'll call Caperly tomorrow and tell him I plan to stay here, sort things out, and get back to work when I'm ready. And that's what I did. I got a temporary apartment. I mean, I just couldn't live in this house anymore. I tried to sell it, but the realtor, a friend's wife, told me that the house was not selling well when an event occurred there. She offered to let me rent it out for a while, and then she can sell it when the story becomes old news. I ended up renting it to a young couple who had a decent job but didn't have the money for the down payment. Maybe they can become my customers in the future. The coroner's hearing took place exactly 1 month after the two deaths. I had to testify with Caparelli and the other guys who were there that day. The decision was indeed made. Death in an accident from carbon monoxide poisoning due to a faulty propane gas heater. It turned out that the heater was recalled due to its defects, and the manufacturer declared bankruptcy, I believe, due to the number of deaths attributed to the heater. Janie and I missed the recall notice and never thought about the dangers of using a heater. Due to bankruptcy, any claims I could have made to the heater manufacturer were useless. But I have some good news from our insurance coverage department. The department covered all employees with a $500,000 life insurance policy and withheld $12 monthly for the payment period, for the same coverage for our wives. And plus there was a double indemnity for accidental death. That meant I got $1 million, tax-free. I never found out anything about the affair between Janie and this asshole. How long it lasted, how they met, how it all started, how they felt about each other. This last unknown was the worst thing for me. How did they feel about each other, and what would it mean for their spouses? According to the rumors, the asshole's widow was a real fool, trying to blame everyone for what happened except her husband. Maybe he wanted to leave his wife and tried to persuade Janie to leave me, or maybe Janie and the asshole had already decided to leave their spouses and run away together, or maybe they were just bed buddies, or who knows. It's going to haunt me for a very, very long time. In the meantime, I just go to work and hope for a better future.